Agenda Podcast, episode 13 to be specific. My name is Cash, also known as Uncle Cash. This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube if you prefer to see the visual side of the podcast. As always, thank you to Tsepo of videographer, the man behind these amazing visuals, Tubby the Don for our sound engineer for the editing, and the best sound engineer in the game. Thank you to.
It's been a while since you said that.
Yeah, like I think it's almost a given. The people who watch both podcasts, they know why, because all the compliments we get is always like, who does your sound? So that's the man himself. And as always, just sending positive energy to Mr. Mojaki, fellow co-host who is not with us today. Safe travels. And I'm joined by fellow co-hosts, Teaser.
Yes, we pitched to work.
Yeah, pitched to work when unlike others who were in the vow for reasons without signing leave forms. You know, seeing as the episode is HR related, we'll be unpacking some of those things. People who do not fall within the lines. You know, it's the creative space, but you're supposed to still respect HR. And our very special guest today, I don't take that lightly, is someone who's very passionate about the topic, as you're probably seeing from the description in the episode. Today we're talking about working with people, and her name is Muelelwa Nyamande. I said it with my entire chest out for the whole clan. Muni, how are you doing?
I'm great, thanks. How are you doing?
Can't complain. And as always, we like to start each episode with a health check. How you guys doing? Mental health, work, finances. We're approaching the end of the year, the final quarter, in fact, the last 10 minutes of the year.
Yeah. Have you booked your December holidays?
Oh, hell yeah. So I've booked my December holiday even into next year because I am done. I'm so tired and stressed, but, you know, I'm looking forward to it, honestly. I think it's going to be a jam. I'm literally going to have fun this year.
Yeah, I thought I was the only one, but that's the general energy I'm getting from people.
Yeah.
Like, just, it's been... And the first full year outside of COVID, so we're adjusting and getting back to things to being normal. Yeah. The downside of that now is everyone is outside, like flights, accommodation, things where if you didn't book in advance, you must be going to Makai for the holiday.
And also, like, load shedding doesn't really help because, like, it actually forces people to go back to the office.
Yeah, true. You're not wrong.
Especially if you have bosses who are fanatic and they were arm twisted into letting people work from home. Yeah. So, I mean, that's where we are right now. But I think it was an interesting year in terms of just the dynamics of how the landscape people are navigating it. So those are some of the things we're going to touch on in this episode. Like just to give some background and context in terms of why we're discussing and unpacking this subject. It's something we've seen within the media being discussed. Also something I've experienced as someone within the recruitment headhunting space. And in talking to colleagues, attending events, there's a general notion of the place of HR, its relevance, its significance, very different opinions, especially from those who are in the space. Some it's from a position of frustration, then there are those who are totally opposite to the general idea that HR does not have relevance or does it have significance? Because ultimately, if you think of it, working with people are your biggest asset. Absolutely. Irregardless of your brand awareness, whatever service or product you're selling, without the people, there is no organization. For me,
might be the most difficult job.
Most definitely.
Absolutely.
Because
absolutely right.
Anything that has to do with people, definitely difficult.
Yeah.
So look, we'll get into specifics, but obviously with each guest, one thing we love to do on our podcast is just unpack the person, their background, exactly, you know. So I think, as you can obviously see, she's full of life and she's passionate about HR. So maybe your background, as far back as varsity, why the decision to get into human resources?
All right. So, guys, thank you for having me on the podcast.
Sure.
I'm actually super excited. But yeah, so just to reiterate my name. Shame, Cash, you tried, no?
Yeah, I tried. I should have stuck with Muni.
No. It's actually, I'm glad you tried because I think I appreciate that more. And I'll tell you why. But my name, Muelelwa Nyamande, that means remembrance ngachivenda. So nice. I think my mom really named me fittingly because I have noticed, and I think I use that to my strength, is when I enter a room, I make sure that, you know, I'm remembered, I suppose, and I leave, you know, knowing that, you know, I'm remembered and I make an impression. That's the word. But maybe just my background, really. So I started varsity. So I'm not going to go all the way into primary and high school, but born and raised in Johannesburg. And then I went into varsity, hoping to be a doctor. You know how it is.
Black parents.
You know how it is, hoping to be a doctor. And that really didn't fare well with the grades, right? So you had to find another way. So I remember going to Wits, not having been accepted into the medical school, and you have to go to Wits. And literally you haven't been accepted anywhere, and you're just like, I have to do something. So I'm lining up at Wits, and then I'm looking at all the courses, and I'm just like, what's the closest thing that I can do to really connect with people? Because I really believed I'm a people's person. And the reason why I say I believed I'm a people's person, because I'll explain later why it might have changed a bit. So I literally got into it. I decided, okay, I could be a psychologist, because that's still a doctor, right? So a doctor of the mind. And then I ended up not doing like the clinical psychology piece. I ended up doing the industrial psych piece. And I think that's where it really started. And really, my intention was really not to go into HR. Okay. I think my intention was to go into consulting. And then somehow I landed into HR through a graduate program. So, ever since then, I've always been passionate about people. And I think it's not necessarily just being passionate about people, just really understanding how people's minds operate, because we got a lot of ways in which people really think and operate and try and decipher the world. And you're just like, yes, no, maybe. And it's really just quite interesting to see just how people evolve through time. And that, for me, I think is what really got me into it. It's just, how do you evolve over time? And then how do people around you evolve over time? And then what does that look like and show up in whatever situation? And then I just happen to do it in the workplace.
Is it very clear, like when you start, where you might end up, or I've often found a lot of people say, I'm studying HR, and you're like, what exactly do you do? And it sometimes feels like it's not actually clear. Yeah. Or most people would not know actually like, what's the end goal.
Yeah, so back in my time, it would have been that case, right? Because we had, not that we had less information, but the world wasn't as open as it was right now. So when I started, all you knew is you could be in HR, and HR was really around, literally, I will hire you. I will manage your talent. And then if you get fired, I will also do that.
The exit process.
The exit process. Exactly. So obviously, when you know how to connect the dots, you're going to be far more eloquent about exactly what I said. Okay. But it is what it is. But right now, I think the generation right now does have the opportunity to really, outline and really just talk about what that path looks like, because you can start in HR, which is what I love about the industry I'm in and the organization I'm in. You can start in HR, but you can actually end up in marketing. Right? Yeah. Okay. So that's what it's about. It's about how are you connecting the dots with what you studied, how you've lived your life, your lived experiences. That's the new buzzword, by the way, in HR, lived experiences.
Yeah, exactly. there's one every other.
Always. So that's what it's about. So now you actually just don't have to pen that you're going to be a consultant, a recruitment consultant, to then an HR consultant, to then an HR BP, because that's when you become the manager, and then an HR head. You can literally zig and zag.
Maneuver now. Yeah, okay, that's quite nice. Yeah. That's quite nice. Yeah. It broadens it up.
Absolutely.
And I guess the other difficulty, as we think about it, is we don't actually often realize that you're actually dealing with people.
Absolutely.
If you remove HR first, if you remove the actual work, you're dealing with people. And I often wonder if that's what they prepare you to, the psyche of people, because like I can imagine the first job you get and you're like, I'm in HR and I'm going to deal with all people. Then there's this ageism that happens. There's this experience that happens, and it can be daunting, I'm sure.
Then there's also I think another one that's very unique to the South African context is multicultural, multilingual.
Absolutely.
And that is something you can never really downplay, because
absolutely,
I've always thought, because if you look at transformation, you look at from a gender, you look at from a race base, and just look at from trying to balance out. You look at interns coming up. I mean, I rightfully would just like to assume that there's more to juggle if you're an HR person within the South African context. you know, it's more weighty, because
Definitely.
if you look at maybe like a lot of organizations, some of them are trying to catch up in terms of transformation on the one side.
Yep.
Then there's some more just trying to get HR right in terms of what is the modern day workspace like.
Absolutely.
The millennials and the younger kids, how you manage them is totally different to our times, you know, without revealing
Are
our
they as
age.
bad as it sounds?
What, the millennials?
Millennials.
I think I think they
I'll
get
answer that just now.
they get
Go ahead.
I think firstly from what I've seen in the recruitment space, they get a bad rep, but like our guest is saying, in terms of they're more forthright with what they want.
Absolutely.
They know what they want. Whereas previous generations is almost just happy to be there. Grateful. Like you said, figure out as we go along, like what's the career path. I'll take guidance from those who are here.
Yeah.
Whereas they're backwards. They work from the back in terms of what's my end goal? What do I want my career at a later stage to look at? Look like. Whereas most of us like just get a job.
Yeah.
And then once they do that, anything that doesn't align, they have no qualms in letting you know that, look, this is not it.
Yeah.
To the point even to walk away from, let's say, a grad program or corporate, where people be like, why would you leave such a great company? But for them, simply and say, no, this is not in line with where I see my career going, you know. So that's the one dynamic. But what's been your experience in, like, as you're navigating in terms of the multicultural, all the facets of being in HR in South Africa, if we maybe take it there?
Yeah. So I think to just start off, there's nothing easy. You're absolutely right. It's not an easy job. And I think one of the main reasons why there's nothing easy about HR, and people just assume that it is. You just deal with people, right? And I think this is what you were saying earlier on. You cannot measure someone's behavior. You cannot measure someone's personality. Sales, you can measure how much sales you're putting out.
Exactly.
Manufacturing, you can measure.
Target,
You know, there's a target, but I cannot measure in terms of what you're going to go through in your life outside of the organization, and then how you show up, right? And what that actually looks like. So if you look at it, so let me start from when I started my career, right? When I started my career, I really believed that HR was serving the purpose that it needed to at the time. And it was really just around understanding the whole process of people in an organization, because now we're in a time where technology is really, it's coming up and fast. BBM, at the time BBM was there, Facebook, and we're getting into it. And then also a bit of Instagram was also coming in, right? And I think where we were versus where we are now was really around understanding the psyche of, because we used to use this word, which I kind of like, but made sense, but didn't. People are our greatest asset. And I don't think that we actually understood what that meant, right? We didn't understand. We just understood that there's someone who's actually producing for me and therefore they're an asset. But we didn't take it back to where we're taking it now around you're an asset because of, and I'm going to use my buzzword, lived experiences. So you have lived a certain type of life where you know that whatever I come out of with this role or with this position, it's because of my lived experiences and it's because of the purpose I want to drive. So now, and I like what Cash said around, these days the younger ones are just not there for the sake of being there, because you know why? They're all about purpose. They're all about what is your brand? What does your brand represent? People actually care about the fact that this world is being, abused. The fact that there's actual, issues around climate change, the issues around potentially gender-based violence that is literally killing our women. So people think about that. People think about, is it actually 100% plastic? Because now I'm also destroying my environment. So if you look at the two, and if you really look at then and now, yes, they have every right to, and they should, because organizations nowadays, they play pompous, right?
Very.
They play pompous. So I think right now what we're doing is showing up to say, yes, you can be a multinational. Yes, you can be who you think you want to be, but actually you have a greater cause to serve by serving the communities in which you operate. You can't tell me that you're literally printing money and the communities in which you operate aren't benefiting. So this is what these millennials are thinking about. And I suppose in the HR space and in the HR realm, and what I do and what my team and I do is that it's all about finding the right clique of people and finding people that think differently, so much so that it makes sense for us to achieve a goal, right? So if you and I, the three of us, are really thinking the same, guys, we're not going to achieve anything.
Yeah.
But if I'm thinking about Lo Mama who's sitting in the corner in town, and I'm thinking about, Usquiza sitting up there in Hyde Park thinking she's all that in a bag of chips, and I'm thinking about a gay guy who's trying to make it without getting literally abused and catcalled and almost killed because he's gay. And if I'm not, and I look at myself, if I'm not being looked at and be like, oh no, she's too dominant as a woman and she cuts her hair. No. It's that's what we want. We want all of that. We want the views. We want the different ways of working. And really, I think if you look at it, and you spoke about ageism, I think we're not there anymore, right? We're not there. We're not. It's all about what value you bring. But where we are, Cash, where we are is really the transformation. Guys, we have to change it.
It has to happen. Yeah.
It has to change.
Was it Discam?
We can start there, and I can tell you a bit about that. You know what, guys? Let me be honest with you. What Discam did was not wrong. It's how they did it.
Yeah,
that's it.
That's all.
The moratorium or the pulling back of the moratorium.
Yeah, no. So the moratorium itself was fine.
Yes.
It's just the words that they used and how. They did
execution.
it.
Yeah,
the execution was.
It offended people.
Yes,
it was
offended. It was poor. It was poor, honestly. But what they're saying is absolutely right.
Yeah. I think it actually resonated. Like don't hire or maybe seize a bit. Prioritize other races over for management. That made sense.
Do you know it stems from though? Muni actually made a good point. I think the starting point in where some of these corporates get it wrong is being pompous.
Yeah,
because it's a position of established corporate. We've been printing money, so now we're gonna do this valiant thing.
Yeah.
So almost we're doing this, but also saying to other corporates, this is what you should do.
Yeah.
And then in doing it, not really executed right.
Absolutely.
But the message is no different to what a trade unionist might say.
Absolutely.
But if it's a trade unionist, everyone's okay, I know they're militant, it's to be expected. But now it's a corporate, there's this misnomer where they want it to be more watered down. They want it to be palatable. Yeah. They want the shareholders to not get worried. Like, why would you say that? But the message has to be the same.
Yeah, I know that transformation has to happen. Yeah. And I do think, there's labor laws around it. But I suppose it's not enforceable, right? It's almost like is it a recommendation? Is there I don't want to say like do they have to do it, or if they don't do it, maybe they don't get the BE points they need, and then they don't procure from government. Is that the ultimate?
That's in essence it, right? So there are laws, there are laws and compliances that we are bound to. As organizations, specifically your large organizations, so your MNCs, etc. These are the ones that literally print money. And part of what the government has done is put moratoriums around the fact that we need to start being able to show the transformation. So, for example, speaking from experience, we do get the Department of Labor coming to assess our transformation and our books. But in that transformation process, it's really around what strategies have you put in place and what plans have you really put in place to actually accelerate the program. So what does happen, for example, is with some of the acts and the laws that we have that ask organizations to really transform, is if you haven't transformed, which is what I think the problem is, right? If you haven't transformed, we fine you. That's it.
And they just pay the money.
And they just pay the money.
Yeah, because they've got plenty of it, and it's aggressive.
Exactly.
Because some are stuck in the ways of we'll just pay the fine.
Exactly. And really that's what I really believe. A lot of them are just okay with, guys, we'll pay the fine because we need to keep our status quo the same. And I can understand why that is, because there's this agenda and there's this acceleration of the black person, of the African person. And unfortunately, what that is doing for the other races, it's making them very uncomfortable.
It does.
It's making them very uncomfortable in the sense that, when you've just been used to something and all of a sudden now someone is now knocking at your house, asking you to get out of your house. And I think that's what's happening, right? So I think in that light, a lot of the organizations and the teams are just like, how do we still keep things stable the way they are, but yet we need to throw, and I say this with all due respect, throw a bone to the other side. You know? And I don't think they're there yet. You know, I don't think they really understand what this means for our people. So go ask, the heads of organizations. And I'll call out the names, Discovery, Liberty, Sanlam, go ask them in terms of, if I look at your board, if I look at your executive team, how many of them represent me? And if you really look at it, and what we should be using in transformation and what we do get assessed on is what we call our EAP, EAP, economically active population.
Okay.
Guys, can I tell you facts? Is if black people stopped buying from ShopRite for one day, we all know the facts.
Billions.
Billions, right? Yeah. And it'll take them at least two to 3 years to recover from a one day of not buying. Okay, maybe one day, maybe it's an exaggeration, but a month of not buying from. So that's how much buying power we have. So therefore, you would think that organizations want to transform to say, damn, if I can have that much buying power, imagine what I can have when I have people making decisions about the people that are going to buy my product.
I think that's a brilliant point, because I think what's the problem with most of these situations is it's very reactive.
Yeah.
And especially when in capitalism, where it's only when our bottom line is affected or might be affected are we then going to make the decision.
Yeah.
Whereas, we're discussing even before the recording that a lot of leaders who achieve great things within organizations in terms of making their mark, especially in the people space, they don't really reinvent the wheel. No. It's someone who simply comes and says, what is the status quo around the transformation about our interns? Or like you mentioned, like you want a diverse group of people within the HR team. Change the way it's been done. Yeah. Because, and of course we all know like people are a bit resistant to change.
Yeah, absolutely.
But for those who are brave enough, and I use brave in inverted commas because you're not really revolutionizing anything. You're just coming in simply saying, listen, I hear what you're saying, but you've brought me in. This does not work.
Absolutely.
If this department and this corporate wants to live the people brand or image they purvey out in the market, not just for the sake of shareholders, we need to have interns, HR. We need the whole company to be representative of not only the demographics of the country,
absolutely,
around gender, orientations, it's everything, and give those people a chance. But what's the sad irony is, if you do that, it's going to lead to more money, because, like you rightfully said, you don't come up with anything new if everyone's thinking the same, if we look the same, if we sound the same.
Exactly.
Let's get younger people, older people. Let's merge the older people who can tell the younger people what they did that worked, and the fresh perspective and all the different angles. Absolutely. But what the challenge is also sometimes in South Africa is when they look at their financial year end results, and every year we're ticking along nicely. This is the one time where if it ain't broke, don't fix it. For me, doesn't really come into play, because you need to actually not break it, but look at it differently. It's fine now. Fast forward to 10 years, all it takes is one corporate to do some of the things that we're suggesting.
Yeah, but I mean, I was going to ask you. So I mean, how do you tell an organization that has great culture or intentions? Say now it's someone on the other side, the people that you generally interview. Is there a way that people should ask actually when they're at interviews, and do they even get the right answers, or they get the standard fairy tale answer? We stand for this, and is there a way that one can actually tell if the organization that they're going into is actually trying to be transformative, and they mean well, and then they drive that culture? And then the second part, question I want to ask is how, I'm sure it's very difficult to drive that culture, but I'm sure there are people that get it right, and I just wonder, what do they do to kind of get it right, to make sure that middle management understands, and then they put it in their scorecard, and then it falls into their lower management, and I wonder how they do it.
So let's answer your first question. So in essence, I think, I've been in a lot of interviews, right? Yes, I'm thinking about
probably every week, or you're no longer at that stage.
No. Oh, no, you never leave that stage. It just depends on your level.
On the levels,
now you're just hiring for executives and But it's actually interesting. That's such an interesting question, because candidates don't ask that. They ask about culture, but they don't ask about what is your transformation plan. Why are you interviewing me versus interviewing a Dion or
Yaku.
you know, or Yaku or you know, a Kumeshin? Why are you interviewing a Tepo?
Is it still fear? I suppose maybe for black people, if we were to say.
I don't even think it's fear more than. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say things like "goddamn," but it's
sure, go for it. Yeah,
great. It's like "goddamn," I got an interview with this MNC. Hey, I'm just so happy to be here.
Exactly.
And sometimes you feel like people don't want to ruffle feathers. I will speak from my point of view. Is when I have been interviewed and I've said some kind of interesting things to the person that's hiring me. Well, I didn't get hired, but I've said things around, you know, the culture didn't fit. I was more, forward with transformation and things like that. And people are just like in the interview, like, this is going to be the one that's going to So I don't think people do that, right? So great question. And I think that is something that I am actually going to start asking in terms of what is it that you're looking for in the organization? Because you know what they do? They tell you all about the company. They tell you about, you know, it makes this kind of product. These are the kinds of people that we want, you know, but it doesn't tell you about, you know, I went into your website and I looked at your board of executives.
Yes.
I'm not seeing people that look like me. What is the plan? No one asks that. Yeah. So I'm going to make sure I do that. But to answer your next question, so I am very proud of the organization I work in. I won't say it, so y'all can go check me out on LinkedIn to go check it out. But in terms of the organization that we went through, we went through a very tumultuous time about 2.5 years ago. We'll talk about it afterwards. But I think in that moment, what the head of HR, and I remember her so well, so shout out to Michelle Chetty. She has moved from the organization, but I think she took such a great stance on really having to take a step back and look at the organization and look at what we were crying out for, because it was a huge thing. It was a huge thing that was in the market, where one of our biggest players and our biggest buyers were pulling out, and we were just like, no, you know. And I think in those moments we really had to pivot quite quickly. We pivoted very quickly. Another buzzword. We pivoted quite quickly.
Yeah, definitely.
And in that pivoting, it was around making bold decisions on scorecards. So one of the decisions was just really around how are we going to ensure that when we're talking about our EAP, how are we going to ensure that we actually do it? So internally, who are we promoting? Why are we promoting you? So we're not promoting you because you're black. We're promoting you, because you have the experience and you actually know. And actually, guys, fun fact, when these people are saying he's not good enough for a job and trust and believe, most people are 40% ready for their promotion. Most people.
Is it?
Yes. Guys, if a line manager says to you they're not good enough or they're not perfect because they haven't reached the level of management, they're kind of crazy. Because if you're already ready, then why are you going into that role? You should be going into the role that the interviewer is interviewing for.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So you should always come into a role half ready, because if you're ready, trust and believe that person will stay for 1 year and they're going to think that they're going to
outgrow it.
Exactly. Outgrow it, probably jump ship.
Exactly. So maybe back to my point was we had to make those bold decisions. And I was part of the group, specifically in HR, that spoke out boldly and loudly about, guys, I'm not represented. When I look up, I don't see myself. So how do you think I feel? You know?
And I'm assuming it's uncomfortable.
It's so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But it's necessary.
Because next day you have to still sit with the same people, work together.
Yeah.
You know?
But you know what? Because of how we did it, right? Because yes, it was uncomfortable, but because of how we did it, is that we recognized that there had to be a psychological safety. So it wasn't just about, I'm unhappy, I'm not represented. You also, guys, you're also, managing your career. So let's not even twist it and say, you're going to go out guns blazing. No, you're also managing yourself and the people that you work with, you respect them. You're also managing your perception, your career. But I think just even, and this is why I will always respect Michelle Chetty, because how she helped us really mold just the narrative in which we have to land. It was right, okay, guys, this is where we are. what does this mean to us? Okay, how do we ensure that we make everyone feel included? Because now imagine, all of a sudden I'm accelerating every black person. They're Indians, they're coloreds, they're whites, you know? So we had to create that environment of why is it necessary?
Yeah, so I was going to ask you, was she supported from the top?
Yeah.
Like at board level, the CEO and the exco,
Yeah.
they were supportive. Because I'm assuming then the other people that don't do it, it's maybe because they don't have the support, or she did it without the support anyway.
You know what?
Took a brave position, yeah.
At a certain level, I think you can, and I won't speak for her, but I think at a certain level, when you have gained credibility and respect, I think anyone will trust that you will get it done for the reason that it needs to happen.
Yeah, and you're probably acting with good intentions.
Exactly, and I think that's where it ended up, right? But speaking really to just how it landed was really around the change management of it, and we all had to be bought in. And where it started was with HR. It started with HR, and from HR it was around how are we having these conversations. And what are we teaching people? So what am I teaching my white colleague about why when you say something to me, it doesn't land the same way when you say it to your white counterpart,
yes.
you know? And something as basic as my girls. Like, no, I'm not a girl. I'm a lady.
I'm a grown woman.
I'm a grown woman. And the intention is, you know, my girls and I had a session and, you know, and like, no, I'm not your girl. I am your colleague. But I am someone who has the right to be here. When I associate a girl, I'm thinking of your daughter.
Yes.
Yeah, or help. Exactly.
You know?
Whereas this is a corporate setting. And why that's important, I just want to come and say, it's a small thing, but it speaks to allowing and debunking some of these conscious and unconscious biases in terms of what people think is, it might be surface level, but it's like, no, here's the impression that you're setting. Because understand that me as an employer, I'm not an equity hire.
Yeah, absolutely.
I earn the right to be here. This is what it means. And even if it's not your intention, certain choice of words are demeaning.
Yeah.
Exactly. And where it becomes tricky as a black person like you, I laugh because you said this earlier, you don't want to be the militant, angry black one who is correcting people, but these things are absolutely necessary. Say it obviously in the most respectful way, but the message needs to be continuously hammered home. And why I think this is so important is when you have these very sensitive conversations is people need to understand that you're speaking to equals.
Yeah, exactly.
Even at a very basic human level, you're speaking to equals. So
absolutely.
Don't then have that perception of you are doing me a favor.
Absolutely.
The playing field is equal based on what I'm here to do, what you're here to do, what are the common goals, what's the overall vision of the company, but we need to start from the very basic level of my girls definitely does not work. Even if we're your team, even if we're fired up, but just address, because it's basic Ubuntu. How you speak to someone speaks volumes. Even if that's not the intention, it lands wrong.
Absolutely. And you know, just as you said it, when you said Ubuntu, I immediately thought of how as abantu bamnyama, when I see a black lady, I won't say hi girl, I always say sisi, like sister. And I think there's so much value in how and you know, I like that a lot of corporates are starting to understand this whole concept of Ubuntu, but they understand it as a concept still. It's still a concept.
Yeah.
I get you.
It should be implemented.
It
should be lived and actually should be a way of the culture.
Exactly. So if we're really talking about, hey, Sisunjani, and you know, if we're really talking about sister, how do you treat your sister? You treat her with the utmost respect. You value her. You believe that she is the best person for whatever she does. It's the same thing. You know, and when she makes a mistake, or when he uputi, because there's no puti, and you know how we are, your uncle, your you know,
exactly.
You know how we
it's exactly.
So it's so interesting, and imagine having that type of environment in an organization, and so I really think just from that point of view, we still got a way to go, right? And the reason why we have a way to go is because people need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah,
people
great
especially
point.
In South Africa.
Great point.
Yeah, the South African history is it's that 1994 switch that happened. And then we didn't address a lot of stuff.
Man.
It was swept under the carpet.
It could have been done once and like
one and done.
And we'll move on.
You know,
now we
it's now we're not. People aren't sure where and what, because I think a lot of these things sat for so long. Think of a context of any relationship. love, family, where if something goes for so long unsaid, to bring it up now, there's just that hesitation of why we bring up old stories?
Exactly.
Like these are you wanna wake up dead corpses, but let's let sleeping dogs lie.
Exactly.
But I think it's a great point what Tabo said, because I think it's really stems from there.
Yeah.
It's like, I call it birthing pains. You're gonna have to go through that particular period of uncomfortability. And I think what's also critical, I've seen, what kind of hinders some of these negotiations and just conversations, even just having the conversations, and why it's Ubuntu still a concept, is people go into these discussions with a mentality of, I'm losing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I don't know where that came from.
Yeah.
It's such a misconception and a misnomer, because
So what do? Do you reassure them? Because it's a concern, right? It doesn't mean it's invalid.
Yeah.
It can be addressed so that we move on, right? Do you have to just reassure this is not going to happen like that?
Yeah. So let me turn the question around a bit. How do you reassure someone who has everything?
oh, I like that.
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh,
So my job is not to reassure.
Yeah.
My job is to make you understand why this is necessary and why it's right.
well said.
Honestly, that's all I can think of. And the reason why I say that is if you really look at it, and if you really look at where we've come and where we need to go. By the way, even as parents, our parents weren't putting us in boardrooms. Because our parents weren't in boardrooms.
They were not.
Yeah.
Our parents were either teachers. You're not going to go into your teacher into your mother's class.
Nurses.
Was a nurse,
Police.
police, domestic, whatever they were. Versus our Indians and Khaleds. Indians and whites, and maybe I'll speak to more whites. And my perception, and I will say this, it's my perception, but I've seen it in play, where with our white colleagues or our white counterparts or our brethrens, let me call them that, they own, you see this building that we're sitting in? Yeah. It's owned by them. So which means that their kids have something. So their kids have been in boardrooms where they can see daddy, uncle, brother make a decision about why this building is going to be built and what it means for it to be in a location such as this, right? And those are the boardrooms that they've been since they were 4, when they were playing with their car toys, and daddy was just irritated and just like, John, please leave. But John was hearing things and John was picking it up, and that's still happening, guys. So it's still happening. It might be happening in a different situation, but it's happening because you own
Something.
You own something. So my job is not to assure you. My job is to make sure you understand why we have to have what we're asking for. And my job is to then also make sure that I'm doing it in such a way that does not devalue you as a human, because that's what happened to us. We were devalued as people of color. We were devalued. So all I have to say is, I want what I want, and I want my portion back, and I'll do it right, but understand why I'm asking for it. But the only problem is, and we've seen this fail, by the way, the only problem is, you give us land. What do we know about
farming? Land,
then what?
finances, implements, then what?
You know?
Too many examples.
So that's why it's necessary. It's necessary because we need to be able to really start changing the narrative of what a black business owner looks like. A black business owner is not going to have the answer, but he'll have the passion. So if you give me the land, don't give me the land and set me up to fail.
Yeah.
Give me the land and then say, or give me the organization, or give me the damn CEO position, and then support me with people that know how to make it work. And that is what is not happening, is that you're giving us these things. And some of us, probably 30% of us, make it work. The other 70% of us is because someone was waiting for us to be like,
we told you.
Yeah, we're waiting.
The clock, from the moment they give you, there's that expectation. And sometimes even almost, dare I say, sabotage. Not a blatant sabotage, but you put someone in, you set them up to fail.
Absolutely.
You see it in the
systematic,
because why I like the fact that you mentioned support is, if you look historically, any race in any country, at some stage, first generation, be it retail, be it corporate, be it construction, there were fumbles, there were mistakes, but it was a consistency of that support of either family or that community and race feeding into them. Because there's this misconception where people speak like, the well-oiled machines now were well-oiled machines from the beginning. It wasn't like that. Nando starts as one store in Cape Town, teething problems, they refine it. Now it's a brand that's in the UK and it's global. But that expectation that people of color who are rightfully asking for what's theirs, starting from a basic level of recognition as a person, and then the dignity that was taken, you have to understand why it has to be returned. And then when you give them the resources, don't then pull the plug, because what people kind of feel, the people who do that, you only shortchange yourself. It might not be an immediate shortchanging, but if you do that, your kids will grow up and are well in tune with how things should be done. They're going to have to interact with black people of color or people of color counterparts who have gone through the unfortunate experience of you gave them a chance, they were set up to fail. You see now, and it's a disconnect. And holistically, as a country, economically, it's a tit for tat that benefits no one.
Yeah, and absolutely. And you know what? I think we're also looking at an environment in which there's a lot of opinions. There's a lot of things that are right, that are wrong. There's a lot of social media. There's a lot.
Pieces, open letters.
There's a lot, exactly. And I think in that lot, I think what really needs to happen is people need to let their walls down. I really believe that people of color have. I think we're just missing the other race. I really think so. I really think that we're missing that. Oh, really make me understand. Really make me understand. So for me, it irks me when you see me, I'm black, and just because I'm black in Woolworths, I have to be someone who's working there. It still, to this day, it's happening
definitely.
to me. And I'm out here, well, not that I have one, but I'm out here with a Louis Vuitton bag, or I'm out here with, or you can see, man. You can see.
I had that this week. If it be, I'm looking for someone to help me, but I'm wearing my sharpest blue
Your
suit.
sharpest blue
Next
suit.
thing, I was politely, sorry, I don't work here. Oh, sorry, but you're by the door, you're black, you're in a suit. I'm just a client like you.
Exactly.
We both need help.
And those are the walls that need to come down to say, actually, he could be my equal. That's that. You see, when you don't see someone as your equal, you will always assume that.
And second guess them.
You always second guess them. And this is why I'm saying people need to let their walls down. So I know we very digressed on HR, but I'm very passionate about it. But in just where we are as a society, is we need to start having open conversations. We used to have a talk show on SABC 1 called As Khulume Let's Talk, hosted by Xolani Gwala, one of the best radio DJs. And we need to have far more forums like that. Oprah did it, but that was Oprah. We need to have a South African version where you have people who think like Julius Malema, and then you have people that think like Helen Ziller. And then you have people that think like Mpopalazzi, and then you have the what do they call us, the black diamonds? No,
I can't stand that term. Yeah, black.
Whatever.
Blacks.
Yeah, the clever blacks. I also can't stand that term. But you need to have every type of individual telling each other the truth.
And I think what is really, really missed, like, that's a brilliant point, because anytime people have these kind of discourses, I always remind people, guys, do not have these conversations from your own little bubble.
Exactly.
You're in corporate, you live in the north part of your neighborhood. Yes. I always say, think of the average South African. Because demographics, period, it's the house who works in the office. It's the guard. It's the people who've got access to who can make or break your company. But for you, they're just this level of person. And if you look at just employment and what most jobs people do, that is lower LSM. But when these conversations takes place, they don't have a voice. They're not considered.
Absolutely.
It's like the frustration you feel in corporate when decisions are made for the staff and it's all top down. A CEO who maybe is not even in tune with basics of what the young people want within HR, but as an organization, we've taken this bold, more pompous stances, and we're going in this direction.
Absolutely.
We haven't considered the masses at whole as a large.
Absolutely.
Same thing with discourses with government, where our agenda for 2024 is this. But at branch level, we haven't even considered the people who is going to affect the most. But the term "bring your walls down" is so apt, because get this fear out of your head. We're not coming to take and leave you worse off. It should be a human perspective of, okay, in a people thing, what can I give or what can I stand to gain without losing? You actually change your mindset that I actually do stand to gain,
Yeah.
even if it looks like on paper, okay,
Yeah.
I have to give up a position or this, a
Absolutely.
job or a supply.
Yeah.
What does it shortchange a previous advantage corporate from
Yeah.
taking on a small black business and train them through the ropes? Okay,
Yeah.
you guys want to supply stationery to a big corporate.
Yeah.
We've been doing it forever. We're Bid Paper Plus.
Yeah.
Let's walk you through that journey.
Yeah.
We're not going to throw in the deep end and tell you start supplying an SOE.
Yeah.
And now you're
absolutely.
scrambling.
Yeah.
And only pay you after 90 days.
There you go.
Oh yeah, that's it.
So I mean, I was going to also ask you maybe some of the pointers for people generally speaking.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be anything specific, but I think a lot of and I'm asking this as a general point
Yeah.
because I've seen sometimes when you go for an interview,
Oh yeah.
then they put like a range. Why is there a range?
A range of?
Money?
No, there's no range. Then you're not going to the right organizations.
But I'm saying, for instance, you always get those where there's obviously a budget.
Yeah.
But then they can come under.
Yeah.
Why not give the maximum if the budget is approved at maximum?
Good point. Good point. So I'll tell you the truth. That's why there's a budget. Right? You don't want to maximize your budget. If you can save, you can save. But honestly,
is it a KPI for your?
Not at all.
Okay.
Not at all. It's not a KPI. So I really think
it's on the candidate to negotiate.
that's the one thing. It is on the candidate to negotiate, but so maybe let's just take a step back, ne?
Okay.
Because I know we digressed into transformation, but let me take a step back in terms of, from an HR point of view, there are three things that we focus on, and I'll talk to you. It's about culture, capacity, and capability, right? So this speaks to the capability piece. So when I'm talking about capability, when I'm hiring you, or when I'm looking to hire you, there's certain things and there's certain elements that I look to hire for. So you look for culture fit, you look for skills, you look for ability, attitude, etc. And then, and guys, there's a reason why we ask for references, and there's a reason why we ask for pay slips, because
You just give me 10%.
yeah, not to give you 10%, but so what we do in HR. So there is a process. It's what we call it's REM channel, and we try and do parity. So it's what we call market related. So guys, when we talk about market related, we're not just
Thumb sucking.
Thumb sucking. It's actually a thing where we do it. I think it's with Ernst & Young and I think Deloitte, etc. Where you actually go around for certain industries. So there is market related data, for the organization I work in banking, in pharmaceutical, wherever there is. You just have to obviously give that information, and based on that, right, we then start to budget for the roles, and then we put the roles at a maximum. But now let's say I've put you at $1 million, right, and the budget is $1 million for the role, and then here you are as Sizwe, or you're here as Sizwe, and you want to come into this job. It's at $1 million, but you're sitting at let's say
700.
Okay, 700. Let's say 700, right? So I will bring you in to the organization probably at about 890.
850.
850, 890. Because I need to be very comfortable to understand that my return on investment on that $1 million is going to show. So I'm not going to give you the $1 million immediately. That's the one thing. But also because you need to give people room. Because now, if I've given you $1 million, where are you going to go after that?
1.2.
But the budget is $1 million. Right?
Exactly.
And remember, when you get increases, you get the increases move. You
Exactly.
know? So it's also a way in which organizations, what I know is just to also create that buffer for retention. So to ensure that I still have enough room to ensure that you're actually operating at that level. And then when you do get there, I can now, now imagine I've given you $1 million. You're like, no, I'm the bomb.com, and actually you're not. I've lost. Or if that's the case, I have the opportunity to you got it.
I guess, I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Like, what does the person that ends on the top percentile, what is their increase like?
Exactly.
I'm going to assume it's 1-2% there.
Yeah.
As
So
compared to
exactly.
the other person getting a 7 or 10%.
Exactly. So that's why. So it's not about we're trying to do cost saving. Really, I think it's more around where were you, and remember, even in the cost saving process, you are right, but we don't use ranges. There is a range for a role like mine. There's a range. The range is from 10 rand to 20 rand. That's the range.
But do you find that a lot of people leave the money on the table? Like they don't actually negotiate what they deserve.
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
The one thing that we are, because of the market data that we have, you can negotiate, but there's a science to this. So negotiating is great, specifically for simple things like I was about to get a bonus in my one thingy, and I got the increase, and then you show us the letters, and then we're like, sure,
we can match it.
We can match it. But then when we are using facts, we're using facts. So we're not just throwing things at you. We're using facts as to why we're going to pay you what we're going to pay. So you put on the table, okay, so you're earning 12 rand. The budget is up to 20 rand. If I look at what I need you to achieve, what I need you to do, and I've interviewed you, so I know that you still have gaps, right? So, but I still know that you're the person because you have the attitude. You'll get there. So you're at you're at 12 rand. The range is at 10 rand, and starts at 10 rand, and you're at 12 rand, and I can pay up to 20. I will probably take you up to about 15, 16, right? Because I am one within my market. And I'm paying market related for the experience here, and that's why, guys, please don't confuse experience with the money that you feel you deserve. That's why it's
disconnect.
Experience is so important because if you have 15 years of experience, your salary will be at 15 years of experience. It will reflect. You know what I'm saying?
Unless you're a super exceptional candidate,
absolutely.
which I know another cliche. Jumps off the page, but sometimes you might think you're there. But for those who are hiring, it's obvious. But I do like to add to your point, the reason why you might not employ at the upper percentiles, you need that scope of growth where I can upskill you within the organization. Absolutely. So I'm not going to give you the mill because that's 1 million because that's the budget. Get you in at 850, and then next time around, as we've worked with you, you've developed, experienced under our tutelage. Absolutely. Then we can even the negotiations become simpler at that level, you know. But as opposed to being maxed out. Yeah, exactly. But the experience thing is kind of interesting because sometimes candidates, there's a misconception in terms of what they feel they earn, in terms of how long they've worked, and it becomes a bit contentious, you know. Sometimes when you explain it, but you still see the person is not convinced.
Absolutely. I must say, it can sometimes it's very difficult to maybe understand or comprehend. Like when you find out the person that was doing your job was earning this much, and then you get into the same role, but you get paid this much. How does this, you know? Yeah. So that really comes in with experience, right? And it also comes in with the individual. So firstly, when the individual came in, what experience did they come in with? And then secondly, how long have they been in the job? Because remember, they also get increases in the job over time.
And also maybe if I can also just add on to, so just because we have a budget, it doesn't mean we can't exceed it. So there are two parts of it.
True.
So we can also hire underneath, but we can also go over the budget.
If it's a great candidate.
Exactly. If you're a great candidate, well experienced, and we're like, we don't want to miss out on this candidate. We don't want to miss out. So we do go. And I will say, it happens, let me say, out of the 5 candidates, it will happen twice, which is good, which is actually quite good.
That's great,
because we understand, and remember what I said, we understand around the types of people we need to bring into the organization. Might not necessarily be where we are as an organization. This is the person that's going to take us to where we need to go. So there's a balance. There is a balance. But most times, guys, I can tell you for free, is that if you are going into an organization that has done the due diligence, we are genuinely paying you at the rate at which the market is paying you. It might seem low because of your lifestyle.
True.
But
the schools are not cheap.
Exactly, schools are not cheap, you know. But also when you choose to live out here in Houghton and Eye of Africa on a budget of 10,000 rand, so it's important, and that's why it's very important to also get very close, listeners, viewers, get close to your HR. They will teach you a thing or two for you, one, to be less entitled about your role and to really understand what is it about, because a lot of misconceptions around why people don't like HR is because they don't understand what it is, one, that we do, and why we do what we have to do. People don't understand. So unfortunately with HR, we have all the backstories, but we can't be out here
just divulging exactly
all the backstories, but we understand. You don't. You know what I'm saying?
And I think it then comes also to add on to say there's a misconception about HR in terms of they sometimes almost seen as if they're siding with the employer.
Absolutely, all the time.
Which is like the biggest misconception because you're right in the middle. You're smack dab in the middle, and you're dealing with people, and you have to balance both sides. And because it's a good point to say people should get closer to HR because one, they can even just help you navigate your career, your negotiations, and just have a better understanding of what is you guys actually do.
Yeah.
And I think on the other side, just an important thing that I wanted to come out in this episode is I think HR, separate from you obviously, they need to be more intentional about going above and beyond in letting people know what they do, how things work, and what is their role over and above. Was at the end of the day, HR are also employees. So some of the frustrations you feel, they also feel. They have to balance the act representing staff to the higher ups, but they also have to do it for themselves. So it's collective. See now, so I think people also need to understand that do not see these people as being divorced from you because ultimately they are in the same boat. Understand more what they do. So, and the reason I'm stressing this point is with a lot of people within the HR space during school and even the work and the counterparts, there's the frustration by HR people of saying, people do not value what we do or see our role. True, it goes without saying, but I think instead of letting it get you down or maybe have a pity party about it, but just be more conscientious about standing up and walking into your role.
Absolutely.
Like the stuff, like all those books we have from HR and 101, Grobler. Some of those chapters are actually applicable.
They are. You're right.
But I think it does come to, even at the beginning point, like you mentioned with interviews, people have to be willing to be a little bit uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
To make an imprint, to make a difference.
Yes.
Because if you're the person, like you rightfully said, in an interview, I ask, okay, why are you hiring me? What's your transformation? If they're going to back up and say, we'll probably, then that's not the place for you.
That's not the place
That's not
for
your
you.
fit.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then if you have the same approach when you approach HR issues, let line have a bit of hesitation when dealing with Muni, but at the same time, let them also be expecting that, look, she's probably going to ruffle our feathers, but her intentions are for the good of the employees and in line with the vision of the organization.
So can I just quickly ask some of the bites I want to say? Social media, we've seen people sort of get in trouble for social media. Are we and apparently even nowadays, even at interviews, they might even check your social media even before you get there. Is this a thing, or is it just part of trying to make sure that you get the right candidate? How do you guys view social media?
The honest answer, I think it's stupid. I don't think why you have to encroach on someone's personal life, right? So personally, and I can speak for all of my colleagues, we don't do that. We're not in the business of doing that. You represent yourself first and foremost in an interview. What you do outside of the organization is what you do, as long as you don't bring the organization into disrepute by putting our names into it, your stuff. So don't now be out here saying, hey, I work for this and on social media. That becomes a different story. But before I'm hiring you, that's an invasion of your privacy. The only place I'll probably look at you is on LinkedIn, because that's what the platform that it is. But am I going to go look for you on Instagram,
on Twitter?
So
it's ridiculous though.
So if organizations are doing that, I just think that that's a complete invasion of someone's privacy, someone's freedom of speech, freedom of belonging, freedom of opinion. So I don't think that is something that we should be doing. If you are doing it as an HR professional, please stop.
It almost feels unconstitutional.
Absolutely, please stop. So you're going to judge me because on a Friday
I went out,
and because I've got my wig on and I've got half of my belly out because I got a great body. Now I'm a certain type of I'm a person. What you guys call it, a thought. No, I just happen to like looking like this, and that's okay.
That's all right.
But doesn't mean that that's who I am.
Because it's at the end of the day, social media is an extension of a person and its
Exactly.
expression. Exactly.
Complete expression. Yeah.
I don't know. Have you also dealt with small companies? Because I also find small companies, people struggle there
Ooh,
because
yeah, I
maybe,
have.
maybe there might be lack of HR or maybe not too much power.
Yeah. So I actually have been in a company where the company in itself was big, but the division within the company was big, but the division of the company was quite small. That was interesting. It was like going back into 1984. Where you're like, this still exists. And I will say in small companies, and this is what we're talking about earlier on. I will admit, in small companies, it's more easier to see the divide.
Yeah, almost definitely.
It's easier where you're like, oh wow, okay,
this
really?
is still happening.
This
yeah,
is still happening.
And for the most part, I'm assuming you actually don't have recourse. There's not much you can do.
Well, it's not that there's not much you can do. You can now start putting in the policies in place. So, for example, when I was in the small company, we had to do a lot of changing, which means we had to ask a lot of uncomfortable questions. Why are you doing things like this? People are just like, but we've always done this like this, and you're like, no.
That doesn't make it right.
It doesn't make it right. So we had to change a culture. We had to try and change a culture. So it was interesting. It was the people, it was culture, it was the systems, because the systems come out through what people have always been doing. So you have to question that, the governance, the policies. So it's interesting. There are companies that are still like that, but you just always need one maverick like me to just be like, hey, me and Zan.
This is not working.
This is not how it should be.
True.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's it.
Yeah. And then I suppose personalities again. Some people don't actually realize how someone might be better than you at work just because of a personality.
Yeah.
What would you say to the people that are very conservative?
Yeah.
And sometimes the environment doesn't actually get to spot them.
Yeah.
Would we say people need to be, they need to get out of their shell? Or should we say, the environment can try and accommodate for people like that and still recognize their greatness?
That's an excellent question. And as you were asking it, I was just like, what's the answer? But actually, it's not personality, because when I started off in HR, I remember, so guys, please don't judge me. When I started off in HR, I used to be quite judgmental about if you speak a certain way. If you weren't speaking English like me and you were black, I was just like, what's happening?
Bad candidate.
I was just like, what's happening? Excuse me,
exactly.
I really had to get out of that quite quickly. But I suppose to answer your point, it's not about personality. It's about attitude. It should not matter what personality I have. Mina ngiyapapa, guys. Ngiyapapa. But then there's also someone who is the exact opposite of me. And you can be very conservative and introverted. But if your attitude is right, and I see that, then it's a different ballgame, because there are some people that know how to. Can I tell you something? There are some people that know how to coast in their roles because of their personality. You're just like, what are you actually doing?
Exactly.
But because
bravado,
because they are out there, they are.
Exactly, they're shimmering, but actual deliverables.
The actual deliverables, right?
Lolo.
And that's something, by the way, that I had to learn. So I'm not out here making myself, hey guys, Nami. I was just like, they're like, and then when are you working?
Exactly.
And I learned that very quickly. But yeah, it's really about attitude. If you come correct with a mindset to learn, to be a team player, to understand that this is not the end for you, because a lot of people get like that because they think this is their last role, and because when you've come in, I was supposed to be the manager. So it's really about attitude, and personality helps, because there's some people that have dry personalities. But somehow you make it work. That's why it's important that you have good managers, because managers will always tweeze out certain elements.
That makes sense. And then do you frown upon, and I'm using that in inverted commas, job hoppers for money? Because I always find people say, no, if your CV has too many years, they,
yes, I do, and some organizations don't mind, but when we do look at it, we do
case by case
for specific roles. So there's specific roles where if you have been moving every year, you're moving every year, and we're like, no. you know, because then clearly there's something you're chasing.
Money.
So, you could be chasing money. You could be chasing money, titles, because some people also chase titles, and then also you could be running away from culture. But also then you start to ask yourself, no, what's the problem with you?
Because you're the common denominator.
You're the common denominator. You're the one that is always leaving, right? If it's about money, and I know this is so cliche, listeners, especially the young ones, guys, the money will come to you. It will. Like, I know it sounds so cliche.
At some point.
Yes. Because guys,
Nico doesn't believe me.
I know he doesn't believe me. But I'm speaking from someone who started off as a graduate, who thought I was the shit hot. I can say that too. Okay, who thought I was shit hot. And it was just not. It was just, but somehow it comes together. Well, guys, there's something, and we must learn this. Also, there's something about putting your purpose into the core of what you do. Somehow it makes sense. You will enjoy your job. People will see it. Your output will be better. So really. So just for job hoppers, we don't want a lot of job hoppers, but we understand with the current. I don't think they call millennials, so I'll call them the Insta kids. With the Insta kids or the Insta. And I know they don't want to be called kids. So with the Insta fam, they are more about it's called, that agility. We call it the gig worker. So this is the person that will come, do what they need to do, the best impact. You have been struggling to do it for 5 years, but they'll have the most impact. I'm like, okay, I'm done, bye. So we need to be able to balance the two and be able to suss out. That's why it's so important to be, when you're in HR, to be intuitive.
Very.
Because if you don't have that, you always think that's a job hopper. So you have to define between a job hopper, a gig worker, a millennial, a Gen Z, someone who's a culture fit, someone who's the wrong culture. So who's the wrong fit for the culture.
And that actually then means it's not it makes it very difficult.
Absolutely.
Because you can never look at every role the same.
Exactly.
For the most part,
you can never. But in my current role where I am, I need people to stay minimum 2 years at the bare minimum because of the type of environments that we're in, where you need legacy, longevity.
Imprint,
you do because things are always changing. We need the person who's implemented it to stay, to see it through. So it really depends. So currently, where I'm leading, from an HR point of view, I'm very clear about I don't need a job hopper.
You need 2 years at least.
Minimum.
Okay. No, perfect. I think we don't have a lot of time from that perspective.
Okay.
So I think I mean, for me the last part would just be I don't wanna, it actually sounds cliche, but are you seeing sort of the future of because I think I often wonder, I have a sister that she asked me the other time, like, what should she study? I had no idea what to tell her. It's like, just follow your passion. But I just wonder if, like, are you seeing a difference in jobs as we know it, HR.
Yeah, definitely.
Should people, like, study? I don't even know if there's now like new courses. I don't want to say there's Gen Z, but is there a shift for like the future and how for people to study and prepare for this?
No, for HR. Or
no,
just
in general, like, is it better for like someone to do, for instance, should someone do, maybe they'll do robotics and then maybe they'll do become accounting.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. It feels like people need to combine degrees nowadays,
I don't think people need to combine degrees more than people need to just become more curious. So you can study your BCom, but go out and find out what robotics is doing, data analytics is doing. Obviously, also understand what our country needs. So our country needs a lot of core technical skills. Basic electricians, plumbers, engineers. We actually need that. That's a genuine skill that we need. But we also need people around data analytics, computing, robotics, etc. So if we look at what you're asking, yes, there were jobs that there's literally recently a job that we've just put into our business that didn't exist 5 years ago.
Okay.
And we literally had to make this decision over a period of a month. Like, we've actually never had this role. And because this is where the organization is going, how do we then put it in and how do we create for it, right? So most certainly there are jobs are changing in themselves. So even being an accountant is changing. Guys, you've got algorithms that can do all of that stuff. What you studied, by the way. So it's about how do you become an accountant in an organization where we're looking at being digitally savvy, and we're looking at being more compliant, So what are the things that you can do where you can create value and find purpose in that and be sustainable in doing that? So every role is definitely evolving. HR certainly has evolved from not ever having a voice in the boardroom to decisions are not made without us, which is what I love.
That's quite good.
I love it. Decisions are not made without us. And if I can, and for those that do want to study HR, it is a legitimate thing to study because people think of it as being fluffy and.
Or the support function.
Exactly,
more than that.
Support function. And you would, if you actually really look at the data, CEOs have 2 people standing beside them all the time.
HR and CFO.
HR and
boom,
drops mic.
Exactly,
Honestly, drops mic, and that should count for something, right? But it also means that we have been putting in the work for that to be a thing.
Definitely, it's an earned right to be in that position.
Guys, I've earned my right, and I'm still fighting. I'm still fighting, but
I think it would be so nice sometimes, if we could have this in a formal setting. We could actually see you in your real job, in the boardrooms fighting for people.
That
would actually make
for great. Besides, it'll be impactful, not just beyond the content.
I could do that for you if you guys really want. I could.
Walk through, shoot, because that'll be. I think people sometimes this is great to get the conversation going, but a shorter version of that, it will resonate more. That look, this can actually happen because you really underestimate how people sometimes just need someone to ignite and spark that idea. I can imagine, Muni, your energy is infectious. Now think of girls who are just about to start their internships or whatever they're doing their qualification. She's from Joburg, she's from here. I can do it as well.
Yo, you can.
Never underestimate the impact of something like so. Like I told Teaser, would be love. It'll be great to capture that,
please,
lightning and put it in a bottle, encapsulate it.
Put our minds together.
Guys, please do. But I think just to maybe because I know we have to close soon. But for me, what's important is, guys, never underestimate the power of your dreams. The job I'm in, by the way, guys, when I started my career, was the job I dreamt of. I literally, the job I'm in right now was something when I started in my career, which was almost 13, 14 years ago. It's just like, I have to have this job. And this is the first part of my achievement. There are probably like 4 other roles that I want to go, but this is part 1 of my dream being achieved. But now, guys, I'm going to be fire after this.
Too much.
Actually, I remember you mentioned something earlier about the love for people, and said it might change.
It has changed. And the reason why I say that is because, and it's something that you spoke about, was personality. I really thought my personality loved people. And like you said, my personality is, infectious. Whew.
People are a lot.
People you're a lot. And it's not even, my view has changed. I think it was just because I was trying to figure out who I was. As I was growing up, I was a beginning, thought the world owed me everything. And as I grew up, it was not more that I don't like people, more than my energy doesn't come from being around people, right? But people don't think that because of who I am. My energy comes from around how do I show up every time with the best of who I am in every moment. And that's why I spoke about attitude, because it's my attitude that then plays that part. My personality is all about, after this, I'm about to go home and be on the couch and just woosa, because that's my personality. My personality isn't that. My attitude, though, is about how do I make everyone in this room just come together and let's make it work whilst we're here. Guys, we spend 80% of our lives at work. Might as well like it.
True.
You know?
You shouldn't dread it.
Try and respect the people around you. So that's why I said it has changed over the times. I thought I liked people. I thought, and I still do love people. So don't get me wrong. It's just, it's
different perspective.
It's not, that's what HR is not about liking people. It's not about that. It's more about using people's talents to ensure that you get the best out of them for themselves first, then the organization. That's the kind of HR I want to work in. For themselves first, then the organization, because the organization will stand. You will fall, plonk over and die and will replace you. But if you haven't done it for yourself, you haven't achieved anything, and I haven't done anything for you, which means I have failed. Yeah.
That's powerful.
That's brilliant. I don't know, Tiza, on your side, anything you want to say before we close?
No, thank you so much. This was lovely. This was actually our first lady guest under the business agenda.
Exactly so. Thank you. The bar has been set very, very high.
Oh, yes. Can I be like what you guys?
Friend of the show.
A friend of the show.
Most definitely. I come anytime. I think
I've got opinions about everything.
No, trust me. And I think what you probably like about our show, even not just limited to HR, we had the crux of what to discuss. Yeah. A bit of it was about transformation, but that's how we like our episodes to flow. So
I love it.
Anything that you see in your outside of work or personal space that you think this would be worth, because ultimately we want information and people to share stories, but things that uplift and just get thoughts going and ignite. So for me, it's great that that misconception, as I've always thought, HR has relevance, but HR just put your hand up and be counted.
That's it.
Plain and simple. It's all down to you.
Yeah, and that's it. It's all down to you guys. So I'm speaking from a career perspective. Everyone, it's not even about HR. Guys, you must show up. The organization doesn't have to do anything for you. You must show up. You must be the one to do the job. It's so important. It's so important, and that's the narrative we need to start changing. It's don't be entitled to a job. What? You can be replaced.
No one's indispensable.
You're not indispensable. But damn it, if you're just going to show up and be the best, and that's why I'm saying it's about you. It's about leaving an imprint. It's about leaving a legacy. That's all I'm about. Leave a legacy, guys. This is our time. You know when we speak about people owning things, these are ways in which we can own things by legacies.
Yeah.
True.
It's not about just things. It's about perceptions, concepts, where cultures are going. You own that.
That will outlive. Want it because it will definitely outlive objects and things and beings. But if we say, what is the impression that Thabo left or Tsepo, what was Muni's legacy? It should just be colored wherever she was, socially, corporate, and everywhere.
Absolutely.
Guys, thank you so much. This has been episode 13 of the Business Agenda podcast. Thank you once again to our guest, my fellow co-host, Thabo. Thank you to everyone who makes things happen behind the scenes. This podcast is available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your audio podcast.
Absolutely.
And if you'd like to see our wonderful guests and our great outfit and matching sneakers, check out our YouTube channel. And we are out. Thank